Welcome to Disrupted Science, the occasional conversation between the authors of the upcoming book, How the Internet Disrupted Science. I'm Kent Anderson, here with my co-author, Joy Moore, and we're recording this on Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. Hey, Joy.
Hey, Kent.
Did you know I just told a lie?
You did.
I did.
That
We're
was a
recording
that
this
was a
on,
big fib.
yeah, little white lie. We recorded this on Friday, October 24th, but we're
Well, people,
releasing it on
I
October
know,
29th.
maybe people could check the metadata.
Oh, no. They probably could. But anyhow, we just finished a great interview with Alex Hanna and Emily Bender, authors of the book, The AI Con, and that's what we're going to feature today. So
Yeah,
while
if
we
you
had
had,
the Zoom
if
live, we thought we'd go ahead and record the whole shebang.
yeah, if you haven't picked up a copy of the AI Con, I highly recommend it. It's a fun read, believe it or not.
It is. They're
And
really great writers, and they have a sense of hijinks behind it that I really loved.
Yeah, and it's because it's a combination of a psycholinguist and a sociologist looking
Hmm.
at the nonsense that is tech. And
Yeah.
so they don't pull any punches.
Nope, nope, nope. And yeah, so it was a very good interview. We got in some discoveries of the week with them, and want to thank them for that. And it kind of, we've talked to a lot of people about AI, and I can tell you I haven't seen a fan yet. All the fans are ducking and diving right now, and just getting behind their marketing messages. It seems like.
Well, if anybody out there is a big AI fan and wants to come on and tell us why we're wrong, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, we'll give you a fair shot. Absolutely. All right, so without further ado, we're going to get right into the interview. So here we are with Alex Hanna and Emily Bender, authors of the AI Con. Today we're talking with Emily Bender and Alex Hanna, co-authors of the book The AI Con, which came out earlier this year. Emily is a professor of linguistics at the University of Washington, where she is also the faculty director of the Computational Linguistics Master of Science program in the School of Computer Science and Engineering and the Information School. In 2023, she was included in the inaugural Time 100 list of the most influential people in AI. Alex is Director of Research at the Distributed AI Research Institute and a lecturer in the School of Information at the University of California, Berkeley. She's an outspoken critic of the tech industry, a proponent of community-based uses of technology, and a highly sought-after speaker and expert. And we are thrilled to have them join us today on the Disrupted Science podcast. Welcome, Emily and Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. We're so thrilled to meet you. So Kent and I learned about you and your work and your book when you were guests on the Tech Won't Save Us podcast back in May. And you sounded like fresh authors, like really talking about like our baby's been born and we're putting out in the world. And Paris Marx, we're super fans, and we learned a lot when we were researching our book through some of the people and concepts and thinkers that he introduces. So that was really kind of what piqued our interest in your work. And it was right about the time that we were starting to kind of put the finishing touches on our book. And we, did the history of tech and science. And then we're like, well, maybe in the last chapter, we might say AI might not be so great, you know? Um, and so as soon as I heard that, I immediately sent Ken a text. It was like, you got to listen to this. These people have not only kind of done all the homework, but they've written a self-help book.
Okay, that's the first time it's been called a self-help book, but I guess we'll take it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I love the language, and I love how tongue-in-cheek you are and kind of sassy. It's great.
Yeah, there's something very kind of I'm okay, you're okay, let's laugh about it and
Yeah.
get through it together, which I really appreciated. Of course, grounded in a lot of of academic inquiry and things like that. Um, but I wanted to, before we get into the nuts and bolts of your book, I wanted to talk to you about your day jobs as professors, because a lot of the people that we work with and our audience are professors or are working with students. And so, would you mind just telling us a little bit about that part of your lives?
Sure, maybe I'll jump in first. I'm at the University of Washington, where I've been since we started our master's program in 2005, and in fact, 2 years earlier, I was there getting it set up in 2003. And it's a master's program in computational linguistics that I have been the faculty director for. We're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary of the program.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, we're having a big party this weekend, actually, with students from all cohorts. I'm super excited. And one of the things that's joyful about teaching is sort of what our dean of arts at the University of Washington, Dean Solis, calls being human together. So sort of getting a chance to think together with students, help them find their voice as writers, understand from them what's puzzling about the material. Sometimes that leads me to see it in a new light, but at the very least, it helps me explain it to them better. And the reason I'm talking up all of these things is that these are the things that are very much interrupted when we're told that the students should just use ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'm not a professor.
Okay.
I mean, I lecture occasionally at the high school. So
Mhm.
you know, at Dare, my day job is as a researcher and as someone who is managing other researchers. And um, you know, we have at Dare, we're a unique research institute because we focus on the harms of AI, but also alternative technological features. And the coolest thing about my job is being able to engage with people who don't come from a traditional research background, who are actually our community researchers. And so, for instance, one person I've had the privilege of working with lately is Adrienne Williams, and she is a former Amazon driver and a former charter school teacher, and someone that has a lot of experience and has done a lot of thinking about how data that is generated from people is being used in really awful context or against their will. And so we just released on Wednesday a report that's been a long time coming about all the surveillance technology that is affecting Amazon delivery drivers. And that's based on her experience in interviews we did with Amazon drivers. And the cool thing about that has been being able to train up Adrian as a researcher and really to, how to do deep interviewing, how to be, and the thing is that like she's a really curious and gregarious person. I mean, I was like, yeah, let's take that and drive that into really helpful places and then do rigorous research. And I think to speak to what Emily said, I think that one of the things about that is there's no way to train somebody like that, but to train somebody like that and to actually work through all the hard parts of that, and LLMs really interrupt that because it suggests that there's a shortcut to the process, and there's no shortcuts.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump around the questions a little bit, Joy, because just just because that's what I do. I'm going to use my organic intelligence. So you mentioned in your book that science is squarely in the hype danger zone. Can you talk about why you see it this way?
So the hype danger zone comes about when you have real problems, right? We have science is sort of an unending source of problems, but also there's many problems in society that we really want science to be contributing to. Thinking about the climate crisis, thinking about health, thinking about education, many places where we have needs to be met, and there's valuable research to be done to answer those questions. And so there's huge time pressure, right? Got to get that done. On top of that, individual scientists and scholars more generally face huge pressure to produce output. So that there's that side of things. And now with the synthetic text extruding machines, as we call them, we have technology that is basically built to mimic the way people use language in many different contexts, including science and other kinds of scholarship. And so we have the ability to produce something that looks like science and great need for more actual science, and that's the hype danger zone.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's kind of processes in science that we've seen that we are already in periods of crisis that are now being exacerbated. So we talked in a book about the crisis of peer review, and the fact that, there's an expectation to publish so much stuff, and we just don't have enough qualified reviewers, and people are really crunched for time, and they don't feel the kind of, you know, um, commitment to the discipline. And there was, gosh, I was at a talk that was given in by some social movement scholars at a pre-conference. And that was my first area of inquiry, and that's what I did my dissertation on, was focusing on social movements and social movement study. And somebody quoted my advisor and said, um, at one point she said that for every article you submit, you should be reviewing 9 pieces. And I thought, I'm not. Nope, nope. There's no way I could do that, and not certainly not at this point in a time when you're expected to put out, you
Yeah.
know, the 3 to 5 pieces a year or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's just fairly, and peer review unfortunately has been one of these places where we've seen more and more uses of synthetic text extruding machines. And then and then there's other aspects of that. And I think what's been really unfortunate is that a lot of people who should know better, who are researchers, should really be in a position where they should be more discerning. But there's kind of this push to then say, well, we can use LLMs for this, we can use LLMs for that, and it's really, no, you can't. No,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You call it
But
an
the
abrogation in
Yeah.
your
but
book.
and
Yeah.
but the publishing venues have exploded in the
hmm
last 15 years, and then
Hmm.
particularly like almost on a daily basis, because anybody could publish something somewhere anytime. Now there are lots of different ways to go about it. Um, and so what is it? Synthetic text extruding machines
Yeah.
are
hmm
creating more work for more publishers,
hmm
which they are continuing to put back onto the academic community to say, well, we've got all these papers, so someone's got to review them because they got to be published and because they have to be open and they're paid for upfront. And so there's a very strange math going on in terms of the research output and the expectation. And so, of course, the logical conclusion is, well, then let's just put more machines on it and let's make it
hmm
easier for everyone.
And the
Yeah.
call is absolutely coming from inside the house. So we just got a tip the last couple of days from MJ Crockett at Princeton, who works together with Lisa Massari at Yale, and they do fantastic work, by the way, on the way that so-called artificial intelligence is impacting the practice of science. But yeah, so Nature magazine has created something called natureresearchassistant.com. And the
Mhm.
headline here is Your New AI Powered Research Assistant, helping you save time reading, understanding, and writing research papers.
Yeah.
You would hope that the publishers who are getting swamped with sort of poor quality, unreliable work where the scientists actually aren't taking full ownership, aren't doing the work they would need to do to really be able to stand behind their work, they're sort of like aiding and abetting here,
Hmm.
asking people to do more of it, which makes no sense.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
this morning, Elsevier was celebrating that their GAI solution had won a Cody Award.
What's a Cody
I
Award?
don't know what it means.
CO
Exactly.
code. It's some sort of technology award. I recognize it, but now that you press me on it, I can't say what it is. So. But it
Yeah.
has a logo, and it's a logo I recognize. So,
Okay,
And
so
I'm
but
it's not
some
sure.
sort of
just a
some sort of
logo.
technology award.
Yeah,
So
not just some
Yeah.
sort of synthetic thing that somebody made up this year to be able to brag about, but something that's been around long enough for you to
no,
recognize
it's
it
it's a
again.
software industry award. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. I guess that's the sort of thing, though. I mean, there's the ways in which I'd imagine many large publishers that either are doing things by scale or have the prestige of something like Nature are, if they're able to get more publishers, or sorry, if they're able to get more things published that might create these perverse incentives. I mean, I don't know enough about the academic publishing industry, but the people who are really suffering here are like the editors, um, and the authors, and the peer reviewers. And
and the
so
readers.
the people
Yeah.
who, all the people who are not making money off this,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to back up because one of the things that I think people don't appreciate is how tractable humans are, right? We can be easily fooled by things, and there's a whole history of an arc from engrams to Minsky to Altman to Eliza to all of these things, and people at Oregon Trail, people, even the most basic back and forth with a computer can fool people into thinking they're interacting with an intelligence of some kind. Can you talk a little bit about what you know about that and why humans get drawn into these parasocial relationships or
Yeah.
assume there's intelligence when there's simply somebody saying, "And tell me more."
So, I think what's going on here, and this is where linguistics really has a role to play in these discussions. So, it's important to think about what it is that we do when we are understanding language, starting with the normal case where that language has come from a person, right? You might imagine that what happens is the person who spoke or wrote had an idea, packed the idea into the words, sent the words across, and then the reader or listener unpacks the idea from the words and gets it. Like that's sort of our general metaphor. It's sometimes called the conduit metaphor. There's a very strange and wonderful paper by, last name is Reddy, 1979, who names it the conduit metaphor. But in fact, that's not what's happening. What we know from psycholinguistics is that what we're doing instead is we are keeping in mind everything we know or believe about the other person's point of view, everything we know or believe about the common ground with that author or speaker, and also everything we know or believe about their intended audience and their intentions towards that audience. And then in the context of all of that modeling of mind, we ask ourselves, what must they have been trying to say by choosing those words and in that order? Because the words themselves actually super underspecified. If you think about the word yes, right? What does the word yes mean? Well, it really depends on what just happened, right? What is the person trying to say with yes, and so on. And so the problem is, and this is a good thing when we're talking about person-to-person communication. We are able to use language to communicate, even though it's actually in some ways a very impoverished signal, because we can do all of that further inference about what the person must be thinking about. Trouble is, we do it all intuitively, reflexively, instinctively, and we can't turn it off. So when we see the output of something as simple as Eliza or ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of these, we do the same thing. We imagine a mind behind the text when there isn't one. And so the mere fact of language basically provokes in us this imagination, this projection of a mind, and it's really hard to turn that off.
Well, they've been goosing it too. There's been recent. It seems like the models are shifting so to keep people more engaged with them because they think that's a Silicon Valley kind of idea, right? Engagement
Yeah.
and time on
Yeah.
site and all of that. And so
Yeah.
they've become more sycophantic. They've become more, slangy. They're using more kind of casual language. They're anthropomorphizing themselves. I'm sorry I did that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm a person, and so
Right. That's
I
very
mean they're
inten-
actively cultivating this kind of view,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
and that's a very intentional decision there to then anthropomorphize this, right? And there's a really good history in how this is written in Kieran Howe's excellent book Empire of AI, in which he describes the kind of release of ChatGPT, because the GPT models had been around for some time as kind of a, you give some kind of interactivity, some kind of response, and then making this chat interface then really is where it took off, right? And so this, I am doing this, and presenting that is really made it, really optimized on attention, right? And so now there's these really shocking statistics now, and I didn't read this article in full, but I think there was one headline that said something like 1 in 5 high schoolers either speak with these chatbots as partners, or know somebody that has, and that's really really alarming.
Oh yeah, I've known somebody who has done it as a full-on adult, and they would spend hours and hours because they would wear out their friends with all of their musings, but ChatGPT never shuts down and just keeps going. And we've seen all the stories that like people being, driven to suicide or driven virtually mad and all of that. So, but one of
But
the
there,
things go ahead,
I
Joy.
was just going to say, but there's such a cognitive disconnect between people who understand science and how language works, and people who are reading the news and saying, these things aren't working or they're not good. But yet there's something ingrained. We just saw this morning a BBC article about they did a test on the chatbot's ability to report news, and saying that there's a large percentage of people who are getting their news now directly through these AI systems. And they
And it's a
came
very
up
high
with
error
like
rate.
they came up with like a fail, 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 fail across the board. And they did this whole study, but then as I got to the end of the article, it made me crazy, because their solution was, well, we're going to have to help you make it better,
Mm,
Yeah.
as
yeah.
opposed to
Just turn
turn
it
this
the fuck
shit
off.
off.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this I think is the inevitability narrative that we're being sold over and over
Right.
again, that this is AI and that it's here to stay. And so we just have to learn to live with it somehow. And
Yeah.
that's all nonsense. And that's marketing, right? It's basically an attempt to steal our agency and say, no, we actually don't want this. If it were any good, you wouldn't have to be shoving it into every crevice of every piece of software we use. And
Mhm.
it infuriates me that the news organizations have jumped on board. Like, you would think that
Yeah.
journalism, and we talk about this in the book too, right, would be one area where
Yeah.
the people producing the journalism would feel very strongly about provenance and authenticity and authorship and accuracy. And the journalists themselves, I think, by and large do, but the people who own the news organizations want a piece of that enormous VC pie.
Yeah,
And
and I
so we've
think there's a
seen,
hidden story. Oh, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
we've seen a lot of different instances of news organizations either um, taking a large deal and making large deals with these companies. OpenAI has done this with many different organizations. And the kind of idea, and we talk about this a bit in the book, is that you have this kind of secular trend of news organizations losing just mounds of revenue in the um, in the Facebook and Google and just to a lesser extent the Craigslist era, and
Hmm.
this then trying to recoup the revenue somehow. And so they've then moved to ChatGPT or using LLMs as a means of trying to recoup revenue there. But I mean, it's like the paltry kinds of revenues they've been getting from Google referrals has now even dried up because now there's a
Yeah.
singular interface in which OpenAI is controlling where the outputs are coming from.
So I wanted to circle back to Facebook since you mentioned it. So this week they laid off 600, they announced layoffs of 600 employees in their AI division, which is part of, I think, a story that Ed Zitron and others have been telling, that this bubble is going to start deflating. And it is. It seems like it is to some extent. But you have a great story about Galactica in your book. And the whole, it really hit us because there was a company called Meta that came from scientific publishing that CZI acquired. And CZI is an LLC that Mark and Priscilla run just as a private company, and they make it look like it's a charity, but it's not. But anyhow, they acquired it, and it was supposed to do AI kind of stuff with science. And then, where they did, maybe it was an acqui-hire or something, but they ended up folding it, but using the brand for their umbrella brand. But then here's Galactica, and can you talk about that? Because that's such an insane
Yeah. So
insane week that they had.
And I mean, the funny thing is that it got memory hold because basically it was up for 3 days and taken down, and then ChatGPT launched, right? So it
Right.
sort of happened right before ChatGPT. But this is a large language model trained only on scientific text, and was being promoted heavily online and elsewhere by Jan LeCun as, good because it was only trained on good data. And the thing about a large language model is it's understood nothing, right? It's not a search engine. It's not a reasoning machine. It is a system for modeling the distribution of word forms in its training corpus. The training corpus is scientific text. The output is going to look like scientific text, but it's still going to be basically paper mache of that scientific text. And so it was put out there like as if anybody would want that. And sort of the idea was you could use it, I guess, to get a sort of quick background on any topic, but not quite any topic. And maybe I'll turn it over to Alex at that point. Some of the guardrails they put on it were horrific, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, they had the kind of guardrails that they had, and I don't know if it was trained solely on scientific text. I think it was fine-tuned
Was it?
on
Okay.
text, and I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to double check. But effectively, it was doing things like, if you were trying to search anything about, queerness or AIDS, it would say, well, I can't talk about that or something. And so
It would say this is for science
this is
only.
for science only, and as if those aren't, yeah, so like these aren't kind of
The heck?
Gee.
valid things to talk about within scientific inquiry. And I think you'd search transgender and you'd be like, oh, okay, so like in an area in which trans health is even not even very poorly, it is poorly researched because of the kind of funding dictates, and now in Trump's America even worse so. You can't even search anything within this thing. And I guess like the other thing about like the bubbleness of this, where I want to talk about that the layoffs that what I think happened there. This is, if I was going to venture a guess of what happened there, is that the super intelligence, the quote unquote division, the quote unquote super intelligence division, was effectively,
Why would you
I
have
think,
any other division, by the way?
yeah, yeah, the other
This is
divisions.
the dummy dum dums.
Yeah,
They kept their jobs.
this is my division of quantum pancake making. I don't know, just say replace some kind of inane kind of term. But it's, they had I think acquired Scale AI, and Scale AI is actually a fascinating thing because it was effectively a a platform where there was a platform, they controlled other platforms to do low paid annotation and labeling work. And so
Hmm.
so Scale AI had a platform called Remote Tasks,
Right.
uh,
This is the
re,
ghost workers
yeah,
element, right?
remote tasks. And they have, I mean, and they have people all over the world, but remote tasks, at some point shut down its entire operations on the continent of Africa and like
Hmm.
shut out a bunch of people from work that they'd been doing. And so they had to either go to other platforms or try to contract with other organizations. And so, and there's actually uh, at least one lawsuit in the US of people suing remote tasks for US workers.
Hmm.
And so, like, what I think, if I was going to venture a guess, what I think happened is that they had they got Alexander Wang, terrible, terrible CEO, 20, it's funny because I've found elements of the web where it is merged my name and his name, and it says that because it's an LLM, and says that, and about him they say he's the 26-year-old who's the next Elon Musk, and it said that about me, and I've been like, no,
Oh,
stop, I'm
no, no,
not
no.
20, not 26. Second, I don't want to be the next Elon Musk. Terrible. Many things have gone wrong if I'm on that pathway. Um, and he was put in charge of the superintelligence area. So what I'm thinking is that they just laid off a bunch of people from the acquihire,
Hmm.
and so not to say there's not other types of indicators of the bubble deflating, but I think that's like maybe an artifact of that hiring
Right.
or
Just a
that
false,
acquisition.
yeah, not
And
related.
one of the things that Kent and I have been following in the scientific publishing business market and looking at, there's probably like 5 to 7 top companies who control most of the content, and you wouldn't be surprised to know that most of them are making a big push on their AI claims as part of their strategy documents, their marketing, but also what they're reporting out to their shareholders, and licensing qualified peer reviewed content into AI companies to say that we are going to, that they're being good stewards of their author's content, or that they're going to somehow help this content make their shitty products less shitty. It's just like Emily, your term paper mache was so spot on. It's like, why would you take things that were perfectly crafted from one group of people for another audience in context, and then rip them apart and put them into soup and then sell it and then think that it's going to be a good idea?
Well,
um,
and two other things I'll just mention. One is that we came across something called something 42. Remember that? And what it is you can put in 2 or 3 words and it will generate a scientific paper in 20 minutes
oh yeah.
with citations and
Yeah,
It
everything.
so
does.
we call those things paper-shaped objects
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not a scientific paper, right? A scientific paper is
No.
something very
No,
specific,
it's
as you're
not at all.
describing just now, Joy. But
Yeah.
these things take the form of one, and it's a denial of service attack on scientific communication, right? Just
Hmm.
flooding all of the channels with mush, but that has the right shape, and so it becomes hard to find the real stuff.
Right.
I have to say that I come from a very privileged position in terms of scientific publishing, because in my field, in computational linguistics, most of our publications are actually published through something that is entirely nonprofit. So the
Mhm.
Association for Computational Linguistics maintains the ACL anthology. I'm talking too fast.
Mhm.
And so all of the conference proceedings for all ACL events, our two journals, Computational Linguistics and Transactions of the ACL, and then many, many other, workshops, but also other events in the field published through that. And it is not a for-profit enterprise. And so
Mhm.
the whole idea of like for-profit publishing is feeling more and more foreign to me in the science space.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's not an advantage we have in sociology. So
Right.
in sociology, I mean, the way that this works and the model is very messed up. But effectively, the National Association, the American Sociological Association, has a partnership with a single publisher. I believe it's Sage.
Mhm.
It's either Sage or
Sounds right.
It's Sage or Wiley, and the the thing is the partnership with Sage and Wiley then subsidizes the national conference. And so while the registration for the conference is lower, the authors still have to pay fees for publication. Or sorry, the authors pay fees for publication, but mostly it's the libraries. So effectively, the libraries and institutional access are subsidizing the discipline. Uh, and so there's
Mhm.
been a few people who've really uh, taken this to task. One of them is Philip Cohen, who manages the Soch archive.
Hmm.
So it's
Mhm.
kind of like there's the archive.org that is where a lot of like physics and computer science people publish. But Soch archive is the sociology or social science
Preprint server.
preprint server, and so
Yeah.
I'm on their board, which happy I'm on their board, and it's a really convoluted way of doing it. And I was also thinking about this because I was reading a bunch of papers. I'm writing this paper on AI and productivity, and so many of the papers are already at open access, and most of them are labor econs, but they're open access, and they're typically either NBER um, or other things that I think I don't know their publishing structure. And there's kind of a trope within sociology, which is like, well, sociologists want to be like either have economics or physics envy, and they also wonder why like they don't have as much policy relevance. And there's other arguments of why it doesn't have policy relevance, including like the privileging of quantification. And Elizabeth Pop Berman has a great book on this called, I think, Seeing Like an Economist. But like one small thing is like I don't have to go through a paywall to get to an economist paper. And so, that's
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it depends on the community, right? And so
Hmm.
you both gave two really good examples of the centrality of the contributors and the consumers of the content within the communities, and how it works differently for different folks. And what we've seen with a lot of the tech platforming and the consolidation in the publishers, which include, they've brought a lot of the nonprofit publishers along for the ride in terms of the tech platforming, is trying to make a one size fit all. And
Hmm.
so that's where a lot of these things are getting
Yeah.
complicated.
So one other
Sorry,
thing I wanted
one
to ask,
correction.
oh,
That
yeah,
paper, the book was called Thinking Like an Economist. I was combining James Scott and
Yeah,
okay.
I was
um,
wondering.
yeah.
So one of the other things that Joy came across, which I thought might, Emily, the linguistic part of this is there's an AI solution for medicine, and we've heard directly from people involved with it that because the best information is going in, it's going to be a fantastic resource. And she put in, I think, 2 words, and it generated this like treatment guideline, unprovoked. It had a format that made it look authoritative. It made
Mhm.
it, look like it was extremely well structured and thought out. But that's not. I think because it was a single text entry, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had no idea what you were going to get. But out came this very, the presumption was that they were going to give you this authoritative document, no matter what you put in there. And that's kind of beyond linguistics. I mean, it's graphic design, it's
Yeah.
site design, it's user experience control, it's all this kind of stuff. And they're doing
And
everything
it's
to try to
where the
convince
hell
you
is the
that there's an
FDA?
intelligence. Right,
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
right.
So, and I mean, I think part of what's going on there actually is linguistic in the sense that um, the way these things are set up, we are led to believe that the only input is just the words that we've typed. But in fact, what's fed
Mm-hmm.
into the language model as the prefix string after which to keep predicting likely next word is user prompt plus the sort of system prompt. And so it sounds like
Yes.
that system, which I would never call an AI solution because AI isn't a thing and it's not a solution to any problem.
Mm.
But like the particular AI is not a solution to any problem, nor is the particular thing you were describing a solution to any problem. But
Right.
um, that particular system probably had a system prompt that defaulted to write a treatment plan for, and then whatever words you put in there, Joy.
Yeah.
And when I said where the hell's the FDA, and sort of another version of that is imagine how different the world would be if companies setting these systems up were actually accountable for their output.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another linguistic concept, right? We make sense of language based on who we think is accountable for it, who is standing behind it, who is on the record as having said that. And with these systems, there is no person, but we could hold the companies accountable. And
Mm-hmm.
then you would have just a rash of medical malpractice lawsuits against them in this case, and rightfully so.
There's
Mhm.
been a
Right.
few different products like this, and I mean, they're very alarming. I mean, we talk about one in the book called Glass.ai, where it provides a differential diagnosis if you type in a bunch of symptoms. And I mean, I think I see less headlines about these in particular, although I'm sure that there's a lot of these that are popping up. I imagine I mean, speaking to the FDA, I imagine that many of them cannot get approval. If or they must have some kind of I mean, if you're slightly responsible, you have a disclaimer on it that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm sure
One
they
of the
disclaim it all over the place, but that's
Yeah, but
still
that's,
And
I
not.
there
mean, yeah,
and there
yeah,
was something recently that it's about the use of AI within point of care and
hmm,
electronic healthcare records, is that, wait a
yeah,
second, these are medical devices,
yeah, yeah,
right?
they
If
are.
they're helping, if they are providing a treatment or assisting a clinician, then they should be regulated, and they're
Yeah,
absolutely not.
and they
Yeah.
should be. And I mean, something like ChatGPT would need to be regulated under that scope because there's a lot of clinicians who are using just ChatGPT to that regard in that and in the end. And I mean, that is very much medical malpractice. And we've seen a lot of stories in which people have said, I was at
But
the
then
doctor's office and then someone just typed in symptoms in the ChatGPT. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
right. But then the companies are like, whoops, we'll just try and make it better. Why don't you give us some feedback?
Yeah, so one of the
Yeah.
things I always try to track in these fads, because I've seen enough of them, you guys probably have too, is latency. It's like when, so there's the hype kind of advance, right?
Hmm.
And that's forward looking. And then you have kind of what reality starts to set in, and I've started to see some reality set in. Like I had to go to the doctor for a checkup or get a vaccine, and he's using an AI assisted, medical record. And I said, "So what do you think of that?" And he's like, "It's imposed. I don't like it. It takes me more time to use it." And then we've heard stories of, nurses saying, I pretend to use it, but I don't really use it,
Yeah.
And, just more and more, we had the MIT study about the lack of utility of these things. We're seeing it more and more. So I'm just wondering how you are watching the landscape change from your point of view, and especially with all the insights you have from your book, and maybe since then. I mean, what other things have you seen that are kind of giving you hope or despair?
Hmm.
So we finished drafting the book manuscript, like the version for publication, in September of 2024.
Hmm.
And after that, it was only copy edits. And we said at that point, gosh, it'll be a better world if this book isn't necessary when it comes out in May of 2025. And unfortunately, we did not get that better world. And so the book remained more relevant than it would have been in the better world. And it keeps feeling like it can't get worse. And then yet the next day there's more of these hypey headlines. And you're right that I think more and more people on an individual level, especially workers who have this imposed on them, are saying this is nonsense. But there is so much money already invested and sort of still chasing this, that I think that is pushing the hype. Like there's you say latency, but I feel like there's a disconnect where there's like the people pushing and then the people going, wait, what? And they're
Hmm.
not necessarily connected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
were
there's
talking to a librarian earlier this week, and there's also a labor issue in the center of this, right?
yeah, and I mean there's that. I mean first, I mean there's this speaking to the hype element, and I want to speak to the labor element. I mean the kind of the hype cycle. I mean it's really interesting because there's kind of this conventional wisdom within, I guess, management studies that there's kind of this like hockey stick growth, and then that kind of tapers off, and then some true, some like more true or more better use cases come in. And the
Hmm.
thing is that there's this kind of, just in terms of the amount of investment. I mean, the thing that makes us a bit different is the amount of investment that we're seeing and the kind of astronomical numbers that are coming about here, of hundreds of billions of dollars, and the need to do all this just ridiculous kind of debt financing from, from SoftBank or Saudi wealth funds or all these different kinds of places. And then, the kind of actual profit being generated is minuscule in comparison. I mean, in OpenAI, the largest company, um, produces something like $12 billion revenue a year, and
Hmm.
said this is why they're now, trying to say, well, we're going to like make a wearable, or we're going to, they released a web browser, or we're getting into ad tech. And so the kind of economics of this are just so disproportionately really just ridiculous, and it's so
They're
worrisome.
flailing, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it feels desperate. I mean, what did
it
they even
feels,
said they're going
yeah.
to start allowing adult content next summer?
Yeah, they're
It's
going to
like
be
how
producing.
there's more than a
Yeah.
whiff of desperation around that.
Yeah, oh, 100%. And I mean that's, they're just trying to, I mean, it would be surprising if they didn't get into sports betting or something. Like it's just
Oh, yeah.
it's I mean, I'm just, it's like, what are the seediest parts of
Wait,
the
is
internet
is
that you can.
ChatGPT the bookie? And it's like,
Yeah,
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 Yeah.
it's like, but I want, my over, I'm gonna
Do a
put like,
parlay on stochastic parrots.
exactly.
yeah,
I got 10 on, that the Mavs were gonna
yeah.
win, the
And
title
then
this year, but it's just like, it wouldn't surprise me if that they somehow, like I'm like, it's just the shadiest things. Some
ChatGPT says, sorry, you lost. No, no, no. I bet on something else. Oh, right. My mistake. Here's
My
your payout.
mistake. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not going to make a mistake there if it's going to have you
Yeah.
on record that you put,
Right.
Yeah.
but it's AI assisted sports betting is, you heard it here first. I'm going to search it right after this call. Um, and it's, but
And
the,
let us know what your crypto coin is so that
uh, yeah,
we can ante up.
oh Lord. But on the labor element, I mean, speaking to the like nurses, I mean, I had the privilege of speaking at the Global Solidarity Summit, Global Nurses Solidarity Summit, or assembly that National Nurses United held 2 weeks ago. Um, and I was on a panel with an organizer, a nurse, and um, Sarah West from AI Now, and a Google worker and unionist from Alphabet Workers Union. And the nurses in the crowd were, I mean, they were just up in arms about everything that's being imposed, the kind of detection tools, not synthetic not synthetic text extrusion machines, but things that are like medical devices for predictions, and the things that these things were either missing of kind of heart irregularities,
Hmm.
or things that they were giving false alarms about. And it was just
Hmm.
the ways that these kinds of types of automation get imposed in the workplace um, are really not, I shouldn't say shocking because it's not terribly shocking, but it is the kinds of mistakes that they make and the ways that they're being pressured onto workers is just really dramatic.
It's pretty reckless. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
they aren't they aren't careful about it.
it seems like it's definitely accelerated in the last few years. It was probably not even 5 years ago. I was doing some work on a nursing related product, and we were doing some market research, and we wanted to get some feedback from some nurses, um, and I've also worked with doctors and scientists, and but this was my first time working with nurses, and so we wanted to get them to, like, fill in a survey and fill out a Google Doc, and it took us a minute to learn, like, they're like, we don't type, right? You can we are human people who are dealing with human people. And that's
Right.
what our job is, and we don't want to contribute to your web form, but if you want to call us on the phone at a time that works for us, we could do that.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you see things proceeding from here? What's your best case? What's your most likely case?
So I don't do predictions. I do hopes and fears.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds good.
and the fear is that it sort of continues as is, and that people bow to the inevitability arguments, and more of our systems get replaced by or infiltrated with shoddy automation, while the actual work is pushed into work intensification into people, onshore, or AI is also basically other people's labor. So we're
Hmm.
basically offshoring to a bunch of gig work or gig work in the US, and services get worse and worse and so on. That's sort of what's I'm fearful about. What I'm hopeful about is that all of the people that we're hearing more and more from saying, I don't like this, finding a way to find each other and work together to push back, and not just individual acts of resistance, but actually joining together, like National Nurses United, to actually form power and really oppose what's being imposed by the venture capitalists and big tech.
Yeah, I think my kind of worst and best case scenarios. I think the worst case scenario, I mean, I'm very worried about the bubble bursting and the kind of implications it has with the global economy and what that's going to and who's going to foot the bill for that. Because it's not going to be the banks. I mean, it's you saw this in 2008. Is there going to be another kind of bailout? Who's that going to be on the backs of? Who's going to really suffer in terms of, you know, inflation and interest rates and the whole
Right.
shebang? And so that's really worrisome, on for me, just thinking about the kind of ways that this is going to have reverberations to the entire economy. Um, I also worry about the ways in which the build out of computational infrastructure, namely data centers, is not something that we can really take back.
Mm.
Um, Even if we have built all those data centers now and they're not running AI workloads, they're going to be repurposed towards, cloud infrastructure or something. They're just going to replace those servers with other servers, and then there'll be kind of a more aggressive type of cloudization, or they're going to have other workloads that might be more militaristic in nature, or doing things for oil extraction, or you kind of pick your poison where things that are computational workloads. And so that's a big worry. The thing that gives me hope is that there's a lot of resistance out there right now, especially on the data center front. Um, was also at a tech labor conference this past weekend called Circuit Breakers, and there were several panels around data center resistance movements, um, really being led by environmental groups, indigenous nations, organizations that are fighting kind of with the collaboration of people in the AI and tech labor space. So that was very cool to see. And there's been some big wins in Tucson, in Indianapolis, in Wisconsin. Um, they're fighting a few things, and I mean, they're fighting these all over. I mean, I think that I saw there was one group that was calling for a national data center moratorium, which is really heartening.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that, there's been some really great coalitioning around quote unquote AI that's been around just not only not only people are saying we don't need it,
Yeah.
but also that these things are so environmentally ruinous that we can have these coalitions that push back.
Right. Right.
Awesome. So you guys have a podcast. You wrote the book and you've kept the conversation going. Tell us about how people can learn more about what you do on a regular basis.
Sure. So the podcast is called Mystery AI Hype Theater 3000. I like to call it an accidental podcast because initially we're just doing a couple of live streams. And after the fact, we decided, hey, this looks like a podcast. So if you care about audio quality, don't start with the first episodes. But we are about
Same
to
here.
about to record episode 66 next
Oh,
week. So
wow.
we've been at that for a while. So it both sort of is the source of a lot of what went into the book, and then also it's continuing the conversation past then. So Mystery AI Hype Theater 3000 is a distinct enough term that I think is very searchable still.
Mhm.
And you can find me, Emily M. Bender at University of Washington. Turns up my webpage with links to everything I do.
Yeah. Do you have a gumball machine with a talking beak on it for Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Oh yeah, Tom Servo, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Someone
no, I got
it.
it. No, but I do have a little guy with a satellite
Nice.
dish on
Nice.
his head, and no, I wish I did, and I wish I had um, Gypsy, the big thing
Oh.
the big robot that comes down from the ceiling. That would be very cool. But my cats will have to suffice.
All right. Well,
But
thank you
Alex, where
both.
can people find you? I gave
Yeah,
my
please.
contact
Yeah.
info.
Yeah. Alex Hanna, that's Alex, Hanna, no H at the end, very important. Typically on Blue Sky, alex-hanna.com, and Alex Hanna other way. There's a prominent lawyer in Miami named Alex Hanna, so don't confuse my name with his.
So you've got the future Elon Musk and is it an accident attorney in Miami? Because that's
Yeah,
what
he's
most
like
of the billboards down there are about.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's him. He
Yeah.
has like a lot of
I think
Slip
I've
and
seen it.
fall?
What?
Slip and fall?
Well, yeah. Well, he does like you can test like traffic tickets. I found out recently that's actually not even his real name, which is hilarious. So yeah. So I'm not litigious enough, but if I were, I would be like, give me
You
my
wanna
name, give me my name back, man.
Well,
All right.
if
We'll
this
put all that
whole
in the show notes, by the way. So
Yeah,
it'll be there.
yeah.
All
Great.
right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you both.
Thank
Should we
you.
do discoveries?
Do you have discoveries of the
Do you
week?
have a couple of
Oh,
Do you have a
more
couple
minutes?
minutes?
So I had an amazing week last week. I was up in Dharamsala, India, in the foothills of the Himalayas, at an event hosted by the Mind and Life Institute, at the headquarters of the Dalai Lama. And these are things called dialogues. The Dalai Lama himself at 90 is not participating anymore, but he had been historically up until recently. And you can find all the videos online. But the discovery that I want to share is monkeys. This is a part of the world where monkeys just, exist in the environment, much like rabbits and raccoons and deer do around me here in Seattle. And I don't know if it's all the time or seasonal, but while I was there, there was many, many baby monkeys who were adorable and just like slightly clumsy, but actually extremely coordinated, considering what our babies are like when they are newborns.
Oh, that must have been great.
It was amazing.
Alex, do you have any?
Discovery. I discovered recently that I sometimes watch these candy making videos on YouTube, and I
Mhm.
ordered candy from one of them because it looked so tasty. And my very tiny discovery is because of the way they make their sour candy, um, they put the sour powder throughout the like sweet candy, and it stays sour the entire time, which is phenomenal. It's not as
Hmm.
sour as like a warhead, but
Right.
but the warhead only puts the sourness on the outside. That's such a mundane discovery, but I like
It
it.
sounds delightful though. Now
That's
you've
good
got
to
it. Now you've got
know.
someone who can hook you up with sour all the way through. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
there you go.
All right, mine's very simple. I discovered that there has been a chair crime ring. It's not the Louvre, it's not gems being stolen, but in Madrid, over the past 2 months, thieves have stolen 1,100 chairs from outdoor seating venues, restaurants, and bars.
Hmm.
And
Where are they
total
taking
value,
them?
they don't, well, its total value was 60,000 euros,
Wow.
and they ultimately caught them. They caught the chair thieves
Huh. Did they
in
get the
the
chairs
act.
back?
And they got the chairs back.
All right.
So yeah, order has been restored in Madrid, and musical chairs can now
Phew.
continue, and everybody can find a
Where
place
were they
once.
storing the
What I
chairs?
want to know.
Yeah,
There's
where
a
did
lot. There's a lot to this story I want to unpack, but I'm afraid
Yeah.
that I'm sorry, we have time constraints, Alex. Actually, I don't know. I just love this story. It's just like I can just imagine, like it's just so cute to like let's steal some chairs, and then they're like let's sell them to this other bar, and I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on there. It's like
Gosh.
it does feel like they were trying to maybe start the largest musical chairs game ever,
Hmm.
Well, I'm
and
glad that the people who were affected can sit comfortably now.
enjoy. Do you have one?
I do. I have a very simple one. I discovered a new pizza place in town last week, and it was in a restaurant that was taken over by new management. So you never know what you're going to get. And I walked in and um, looked at the menu and placed my order. And I said to the guy who was like very, very tall and looking down on me, and I said, can I also add, and before I even finished the sentence, he said, no. He said,
What?
he's like, no, these are my pizzas, and you're gonna like them or leave them. And it turns out he was absolutely right. A guy who's standing by his product, and you know what? They were terrific. So now I have a
Wow.
new,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have a new pizza master in
Nice.
my life.
And pizza integrity. I like it.
Yeah.
All
Incredible.
right. Well, thanks again to you both, and I hope you have a great day. And they'll probably put this up next Wednesday. Okay.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Have a
That
good
was
weekend.
awesome. Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks so.
Bye.
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 All right. Thanks for tuning in. That was great. Thanks to our friends at Provoke the Truth for the music. And as always, let us know what you think. You can reach us at disruptedscience@gmail.com, and we will see you next week.
Bye.